Hello, dear students. This is your chapter number 12, Kidnapped by Goblins. Here, this chapter is written by J.R.R. Tolkien. He is an English professor and writer best known for his fantasy novels The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's writing reflect his vast imagination and he built an entirely different world in his novels. This world has its own history, countries, magical creatures, and even its own languages. He also that books that Tolkien books also were published more than 50 years ago. They continue to be wildly popular even today with both children and adults. And these books also have been made into well-loved films. Now, yes, in by this chapter or on this chapter, that it is an extract means a part from the movie or the book The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and here the both are very famous or popular pictures in Hollywood. Here we start with the chapter. Bilbo Baggins is an unadventurous hobbit who enjoys nothing more than the comfort of his cozy home. One day, the wizard Gandalf and a company of dwarfs, led by their king Thorin, arrive at his doorstep to whisk him away on an adventure. Bilbo reluctantly finds himself in the middle of a plan to steal the treasure hidden away by Smaug, a large and dangerous dragon. Here, what do you mean by that? Hobbit is an imaginary race of people that look like humans but are very much smaller and live under the ground. So Bilbo Baggins is an that person that are very small and live under the ground and who enjoy nothing more than the comfort of his home. One day the wizard means a magician, Gandalf, and a company of dwarfs that are also small height people, and which is led by their king Thorin, arrive at Bilbo's doorstep to take someone quickly away that place on an adventure. Bilbo find himself in the middle of a plan to steal the treasure hidden that away by Smaug, that is a large and dangerous dragon. In this extract, the travelers are passing over the misty mountains on horseback. When a terrible storm hits, they find a cave where they can take shelter from the wind and the rain. But the dangerous thing about caves, you never know what is waiting for you inside. Now, when they just travel one over the misty mountains that is covered with so clouds and dangerous winds and this kind of things on horseback, and then a terrible storm hits and they have to find a shelter, so they just enter into a cave, but they don't know what is inside the cave, something dangerous things that are waiting inside. Now, the cave was quite big and dry. At one end, the ponies stood relaxing and eating. Ponies means that is horses. They stood relaxing and eating, glad to be out of the storm. Bilbo, Gandalf, and the dwarfs spread out their wet clothes on the floor and got dry once out of their bundles. Then they laid down their blankets and made themselves comfortable. They talked and forget about the storm. They discussed what each would do with his share of the treasure, which they have to steal from a Smaug, that is dragon. And so they dropped off to sleep one by one, and that was the last time they used ponies' packages and tools that they had brought with them. Bilbo woke up with a start in the middle of the night. Now, a sudden movement into the body, that is by a fear or some surprise. And in the middle of the night, Bilbo just woke up. A wide crack had opened in the wall at the back of the cave. Now, he saw that a wide crack has opened in the wall at the back of the cave. Bilbo was just in time to see the last of the ponies disappearing into it. he gave a very loud yell, and Bilbo just saw that all the ponies just go into that and disappearing, and he gave a very loud sound. Out jumped goblins, big goblins, great fearsome looking goblins, and lots of goblins. And what they found, that there are so many goblins are there. They grabbed Bilbo and the dwarfs and carried them through the crack, and all they just grabbed Bilbo, Dwarves, and carried them in the cave, but not Gandalf. When goblins came to grab him, there was a flash like lightning in the cave, a smell like gunpowder, and several of them fell dead when they just grabbed him means that is Bilbo, that him means, sorry, Gandalf. So by that reason they can't grab Gandalf, but they grab Bilbo and the dwarves. The crack closed with a snap, and Bilbo and the dwarves were on the wrong side of it, where was Gandalf. It was deep, deep dark, and the passage behind the crack went down and down. The goblins were very rough. Now they all are together, but where is Gandalf? Where was Gandalf? And there in the cave, very dark is there. Passage behind the crack went down and down, and all the goblins are very rude and rough. They pinched the prisoners and chuckled and laughed in their horrible voices. They whipped them with a swish, smack, and set them running as fast as they could in front of them. The dwarfs were bleating like anything when they stumbled into a big cave. Stumble means walk in an unsteady way and almost fell, because the way is not that much easy. So all are just bear that torture by the goblins. The cave was lit by a great red fire in the middle and by torches along the walls. It was full of goblins. The ponies were already there, standing in a corner, and there were all the packages lying open, being rummaged by goblins. It means that on ponies, so many packages are there lying on there. So they that goblins open in a like a ways that they are searching by moving things around in a very careless manners. The goblins chained their prisoners hand behind their backs and linked them all together in a line. In the shadows, on a large flat stone, sat a tremendous goblin with a huge head. Now they just walk and walk, and now in the shadows on a large flat stone, there's a tremendous, means very big and a powerful goblin sat there with a huge head, and there were goblins standing round him carrying axes and men's sword. It means that there's a king of a goblin, or main head one of goblin, and all the other goblins just bent their swords around him and carrying axes. As you see in the picture, that one big goblin is there, and all are there, stood there with the bent down and with the swords. Who are these miserable persons? Said the great goblin. Dwarves and this, said one of the goblins, pulling at Bilbo's chain so that he fell forward onto his knees. We found them sheltering in our front porch. Porch means an entrance outside the front door of a house. It means on the cave. And one goblin said that they are sheltering in our front porch, and they are traps, and one another person, that is goblin, or that is bulbos, up to no good, I'll warrant. It means, I'm sure, said the great goblin, turning to Thorin, spying on the private business of my people, I guess. And then the goblins think that they are just to find some, or they are on a some private business on my people, or make a eye on my people, I guess so. Thieves, maybe they are thieves, or just want to steal so many things from our cave. I shouldn't be surprised to learn Come, what have you got to say? Now you have to say your turn, what you have to say. Thorin, the dwarf at your service, he replied. Now he said, Thorin, I'm a dwarf and I'm at your service. Of the things which you suspect and imagine, we had no idea at all. And whatever you think that we are thieves and we have some private business, I have no idea at all about these things. We sheltered from a storm in what looked like an unused cave, and we think that here's an unused cave, so we just sheltered from a storm. We never thought of harming goblins in any way, and we never thought like that we have harm some goblins, or we have some private business and we are thieves. No. Then the great goblin said, so you say, might I ask you what you are doing up in the mountains? Now you have to tell me, okay, that is okay, that you take shelter from a storm, but what are you doing up in the mountains? Where were you coming from and where were you going to? Now, two questions come asked by the great goblin. Let's have the truth, or I will prepare something particularly uncomfortable for you. Now, yes, just you have to say truth, or otherwise, I'll just do something particularly that is uncomfortable to you. We were on a journey to visit our relatives, our nephews and nieces, and first and second and third cousins, and other relatives who live on the east side of these mountains, said Thorin, not quite knowing what to say. Now, the Thorin, who's a king, just said or reply the answer that we were on a journey to visit our relatives, cousins, and he don't know what did he say. He's a liar, a tremendously, truly one liar, said one of the goblins. Several of our people were struck by lightning in the cave, and they are as dead as stones. Then again, Thorin said, yes, I'm not lying, that several people are already struck by lightning in the cave and they are dead as stones. The great goblin gave a truly awful howl of rage, that is, murderers, he shouted. Take them away to dark holes full of snakes and never let them see the light again. He jumped off his seat and rushed at Thorin with his mouth open. Just at that moment, all the lights in the cave went out. The great fire went off, poof, into a tower of blue smoke. It scattered piercing white sparks all among the goblins. It means when the big giant goblin touched the Thorin, or just jumped off his seat and with his mouth open, then suddenly a light came in the way cave, and it gave a great fire, and it is scattered. It means it is thrown in all over the direction in a wide area, and with white spark all among the goblins. The yammering means continuously talking, and yells means that a sound noise, croaking, gibbering, and jabbering. That means the gibbering means talking quickly in a way that is difficult to understand because the speaker is frightened, and jabbering means talking quickly in an excited and unclear way. That means all verses just show that all are surprised and what is there, and they don't know what happened here just right now. Halls, growls, and curses that followed were beyond description. It means all are happening. The spark were burning holes in the goblins, and the smoke made the air too thick for their eyes to see through. Suddenly, a sword flashed in the dark. Bilbo saw it go right through the great goblin. He fell dead, and the goblin soldiers fled screaming into the darkness. Now, suddenly, a sword flashed in the dark, and Bilbo saw it go right through the great goblin, because that a sword just cut the great goblin, and he just fell dead, and all the goblin soldiers just shouted and screaming into the darkness. The sword went back into a sheath. Now, a sword again just go into a cover of the blade of a sword or cover. Follow me quick, said a voice, fierce and quiet. Before Bilbo understood what had happened, he was running along as fast as he could at the end of the line of dwarfs. A pale light, a yellow light, was leading them down more dark passages. They ran with the clink clink of chains and many a fall since they had no hands to steady themselves with. They did not stop for a long while. Then Gandalf lit up his wand, that is a magical wand. Of course, it was Gandalf who had come to their rescue. It means all we just read right now, it is doing by the Gandalf. He came to rescue all the that Bilbo Baggins and the dwarfs. He took out his sword and cut through the goblin chains, setting all the prisoners free. Well, he said, it might be worse, and then again, it might be a good deal better. No ponies now, no food, no knowing where we are, and angry goblins just behind. On we go. It means they are continuously topping and they are running, and now they are saying, now we have no ponies, no food, and we don't know where we are, and only one thing we know that the angry goblins just behind us. On the went, Gandalf was quite right. They began to hear goblin noises and horrible cries in the distance. Soon, the blink of red torches could be seen behind them in the tunnel. At this point, Gandalf and Thorin stopped about turn. Gandalf shouted, "Draw your sword, Thorin." The goblins came rushing round the corner, howling. To their astonishment or surprise, the wizard and the dwarf king stood there with their swords, shining cold and bright in the dark. Means all are now ready to fight with the goblins. The goblins in front dropped their torches and gave one a yell before they were killed. The ones behind yelled still more and leaped back, knowing over those that were running behind them. Soon the goblins were all in confusion and most of them were fleeing the way they had come. It means they don't know how to deal with that, and some are just yelling, and some are knocking, and some are again leaped back and just go back, and in confusion they just go back. So that is the chapter, or that is an extract from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Thank you, everyone.